Tell the truth, big dog.
Brett, and I'm an addict.
Brett!
Yeah, I'd rather pound hot razor blades underneath on my nails. So I'm going to have to pray for Nancy for the next 30 days. But yeah, okay, so what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I was born in Burbank, back when Jesus walked the earth, California. Dad was a drug addict, drug dealer. Parents had me at a real young age. My mom was 19, my dad was 21, and my mom ended up running away from home when I was 4 years old. And I didn't know why. I didn't find out till later in life, until I figured out who my dad was, why she ran away. She was getting away from him. And probably me too, because she was so young. But yeah, it's like one night my mom was there, the next day she was gone, and then I was left with my dad. And I was so young. I was only 4 years old at that time, so I really didn't know what was going on. But I do remember we just bounced around from one place to another every year. Every year I was moving, and that continued on all the way till I was like 12 years old, when I ended up running away and never going back. But yeah, it was always real frustrating for me, because I'd go to school and I could meet friends, and then bam, pull me out of school, move me into somewhere else where I didn't know nobody. And this was just over and over and over again. But yeah, so we did that. And when I was 10 years old, we moved into this apartment building, and there was a bunch of kids living in the apartment building. And these brothers lived upstairs from me. And, they knew what was going on. And my dad was having parties on the weekends, having all his friends over and stuff. And they seen what they were doing in there, because he'd have the doors open and the windows open and all that shit. And so they hit me up. They said, "Hey, that stuff your dad's smoking, can you get me some of that stuff?" And I was like, they were 14 or 13 and 15 years old, these guys. And I was like, yeah, because I never really stuck around long enough to make any real good friends, close friends or anything before, I had to bounce because we moved. But so I wanted to be accepted, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I get some of that stuff. And then their mom was a weed smoker too, so I was able to go up there. And I remember that was the first time I smoked weed was with those guys, And I don't know if I was addicted the first time I smoked it, but I know that when I smoked it, everything was funny, and I didn't have to think about what was going on in my house. You know what I mean? Because by that time, my dad, he hadn't started laying hands on me. He didn't start laying hands on me until I started taking his shit. That's when things changed. But he used to be real verbally abusive to me, and telling me, I couldn't do nothing right. And it's probably coming from a place back then where he was angry about a lot of other things, because he was an addict too. You know what I mean? He was just miserable and taking it out on me because I was the only one there. But yeah, I was terrified of him. And when I was with those kids that lived upstairs, none of that shit mattered. We would just go riding around on our BMX bikes and smoke weed all day. And yeah, it was a good time, actually. So the point, I don't know if I was addicted, but I wanted to do that every chance I got. So I started taking his shit, and that's when things changed with me and him. Because then when he started noticing that I was taking his shit, then it started getting violent. But I started to get such a hate for him when he started doing that I just didn't care. The more he did it and the better he tried to hide his shit, I would search it out and find it, and do it again. But so like for 3-4 months doing that with them, just smoking weed, that was it. Boom, we ended up moving again. And we moved about 3 or 4 miles down the road, and that was in North Hollywood. And right away I hit the streets and started looking for, dudes like those guys were, and it didn't take about 4 or 5 blocks down the street, I found them. There they were out in front of the apartment building. So I started running around with those guys, and real quick shit got turned up, because they were into doing burglaries. They were into doing, ripping off car stereos, drinking, Quaaludes, angel dust, everything. So right away I went from smoking weed, I'm 11 years old at this time. I'm smoking weed, into all that other shit, And so I started getting busted, we were all getting busted going to the halls and stuff. And that going to the halls, I think, because the crew I ran around with, we were just white boys on skateboards and bikes. We weren't out gangbanging. We weren't fighting all the time. We were just, doing what we did to support our habit or whatever, you know what I mean? And trying to have a good time. And I remember going to the halls that first time and being scared to death, man, because I really wasn't a fighter at that time. I went to the halls when I was like 12 years old for the first time. And in the halls back then, when they would open the doors for showers, the first thing they would do is send three dudes in there to test you. I got the shit beat out of me that day. So I learned how to fight. I learned how to fight real fast in the halls. And the reason I say that is because that's where my whole identity changed right there when I was like 12 years old. Because now I had to become a different person to survive. And I kind of lost who I was. And yeah, I remember being in the halls. I don't know which time I went, but I remember thinking, man, why can't I stop stealing, man? I didn't make the connection between the drugs and the stealing and all that. And I thought, fuck, man, I'm going to be in here for the rest of my life, because I just kept getting busted over and over again. And, but anyway, yeah, so that just continued, man, in and out, in and out of the halls 3, 4, 5 times before they finally sent me to camp. And they sent me to camp, got out, continuing the same behavior with the same people, and just went to camp again. And then when I got out, I stayed out for a few years, and I caught my first term. I don't want to spend a bunch of time talking about prison, but in prison, I never, I wasn't the guy that went to church. I was always one of the ones on the yard that was always trying to get in the mix and trying to get high any chance I could. And that went on for a long, long time. But I've been introduced to the program. I was introduced to the program probably in like, first time I want to say it, shit, probably in the 80s or early 90s. But I really wasn't trying to, I was doing it for other people, family, I wasn't really trying to hear anything they had to say, and not taking it serious. And to be honest with you, I mean, it's been that way, obviously, up until now. You know what I mean? I'm back in treatment again. After 23 years in prison, I'm back in treatment again. Just not taking it serious, all the things that people said, that shit can't happen to me, even though all that shit had already happened to me. So much had already happened to me, but I was still in denial. Like, people talk about people dying up here, and it just couldn't, it wasn't going to happen to me, So basically what it amounts to is I haven't been able to surrender, I just didn't have my ass kicked bad enough. This last time I've been out since 2016. Which is a fucking miracle because I never stayed out more than a year ever in my whole life. So for some reason, I don't know why, but when I got out in 2016, I remember walking out of Solano and thinking to myself, I was not thrilled about getting out of prison because I just done 13 years and I knew I was coming back for life. All I had to do was look at my track record and I knew I was going to be washed up, But for some reason, man, I have not committed a crime in 8 years other than using drugs. And I don't even know how that's possible. It's got to be God. It's got to be God. Because left to my own devices, all I think about is committing crimes and going in and out of prison. So I've been bouncing in and out of here for the last 8 years. Still not taking it serious. Still not thinking, thinking I got this. I went and got my truck driver's license. I was driving a truck and just getting clean for a little while for the old lady or whatever, never for the right reasons. And it never lasts when you do it like that. It never lasts. As soon as I'd get healthy again, when things were going good in my life, boom, I'd go out and relapse again. So I've been bouncing in and out for a long time now, for like 8 years. And this last time out, I ended up, some of the shit finally did start happening to me. Okay. I ended up on the cardiac ward. I did some coke and my fucking heart dinged out on me. And I ended up on the cardiac ward for 5 days. They had to hit me with the paddles to slow my heart back down. And so there's that. I mean, I ended up getting a dirty test. My license is in real jeopardy right now. I'm in jeopardy of losing my CDL because I got a dirty test. I got a random from DOT and it tested dirty. Yeah, the road just got really narrow for me this time, I went through Fred Brown a couple years ago and wasn't doing it for the right reasons. Left after 60 days. Thought everything was going to be great. And I think I lasted maybe 2 weeks, man, and I was just right back at it again. So, yeah, this time I'm just trying to really, I pray a lot. I pray every morning. I pray every night. I try to stay in the literature. This has been one of the big struggles for me right here, though, with sharing. The guys in the house, they know this. But so thank you, Nancy, for calling on me. you know, because I would have never came up here on my own. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I don't feel like I feel like if I go out there and start screwing around with this anymore, man, I'm gonna die, you know. And that's the bottom line. So I've finally gotten to that point to where the realization that, you know, this is gonna kill me. If I keep doing it, it's gonna kill me. So the scary part though is that sometimes my head tells me you don't give a fuck, you know. That's the thing with me. That's the scary thing for me, man. And yeah, I just hope that I can stick around this time. I'm taking direction from others. You know what I mean? And praying one day at a time. Thank you.